Give me, okay, good morning. I am recording with your permission. So here's the quote, and I'm going to go to our outline. What I'll do before we hang up, I'll send everybody the outline. It's a very good outline for 4 days. I'm telling you, I wouldn't lie to you on that one. Okay, no, that's not what I wanted to hear. So the quote that we're going to start with is here. So I'm going to go to the document. I got to get the document. Caesar, you can still hear me? Everything's good?
Yes.
All right. So here's the HDT, Henry David Thoreau. It's right there. And here's the Thoreau quote. This is from one of you. This is from your homework. Rather than love and money and fame, give me truth. Henry David Thoreau. Most people want love. You want love in your relationships. You want to be loved. Let me see who just chimed in.
Oh, I accidentally left.
Yeah, that happens. I get it. Back to the learning. I told you, I know I skip around a lot. I apologize. But again, the whole point of learning the concept of thesis is to make connections. Everything, now hold on. I'm going to come back to you. The most important thing you can do is make connections. Now, something that I do a lot, and I hope you notice it, is I'll make connections between history and literature, connections between literature and philosophy, maybe even connections to science. At a fundamental level, you want to find how your courses are connected, not how they're divided. For example, if you remember back in July, we studied a poet named Gerard Manley Hopkins, that Jesuit priest poet who wrote about the cows. I know it was complex, but I did study him for several hours with you. He was seeing connections. If you were in that class that day, it was a Friday. I was up in Michigan. In case you forgot, I'm going to tell you what Hopkins' thesis was. He saw some cows in the English pasture. They were white cows with brown spots. That's what cows look like. But then he said, those white spots look like clouds on cows. He was making a connection that the spots on the cows, and the spots in the clouds in the sky are connected. Why? Because God created both. Because he was a priest. I need more learners to understand that this is what will always bother me about education. When the bell rings, virtual or otherwise, you go to another class and the assumption is you learn a different subject. That's not entirely accurate. If I'm teaching The Great Gatsby, which takes place in 1925, and then you studied some history that took place in 1925, Prohibition, the Jazz Age, the Gangsters era, I could use that history lesson to make your knowledge of Gatsby more in depth. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to connect the dots. Now, let me get back to the quote and let's put it all together. I'm going to show you something that I very rarely show people unless they're second semester seniors. And the only reason I say that is that's the only time I ever teach this lesson is to outgoing seniors to sort of give them a way of looking at the world before they go to college with all those temptations. And it's about truth. As always, I need you to be attentive and open-minded because I'm going to show you something as best I can, how truth has changed over the last 1,000 years. How 1,000 years ago, human beings had a different understanding of truth than we have today, and that has altered society. And I don't think it altered it for the better. That's your decision. Maybe question mark. I'm going to repeat my thesis. I'm going to go to the document and outline it. The nature of truth over 1,000 years, like a coin flip, has changed. And then only you can decide what truth you believe in. And I'm going to show you. Henry David Thoreau says, more than love, more than money, more than fame, give me truth. Now watch this. In 500 BC, so that is 2,500 years ago, in ancient Greece, philosopher, excuse me, the philosopher Socrates said, truth is absolute. And what does it mean when something is absolute? Let's put it in context. I'm going to come back to you. I'm losing my scroll here. I'm sorry. I want you to look at that quote. He said, truth is absolute. I'll give you an example of absolute truth. Mom, can I go to the party? All the other kids are going. No. You can't go. It's an absolute truth. No matter how you argue, no matter how you jump up and down with a tantrum, you're not going to the party. You should have done your chores, and now you're staying at home being punished. I don't know. That's when I was growing up, they used to punish you, make you do your chores. Absolute truth. No exceptions. So let's define that in the outline. Absolute truth. You're going to like this. Absolute truth is when there are no exceptions to the truth. For example, the best example is the 10 Commandments in the Bible. Mr. Edwards, I didn't memorize all the 10 Commandments. That's fine. You know this one. A 6-year-old knows this one. Well, maybe not. A 6th grader knows this one. Thou shalt not kill. I'm coming back to you now. Thou shalt not kill. Well, let's review that. Let's take a look at that. I need you to pay attention, Stavrola, Edward, Caesar. What did God say? Okay, number one of you, all of you, have you heard the commandment, thou shalt not kill? Have you ever heard that? Yes, no, maybe. Yeah, of course you have. Did God say, thou shalt, watch this. Did God say in those, Moses chiseled those commandments on Mount Oreb to give to the people. He had his stonecutter's chisel. Did God say, remember here, no exceptions to absolute truth. Did God say, thou shall not kill except? Let me be even clearer. Did God say, thou shalt not kill, but if somebody invades your house at 3 a.m. and you've got a legally licensed gun, you can blow them away? Did God say that in that commandment? Yes or no? Or maybe. Let's review. Because I thought we wanted to learn something about truth. And I didn't bring that quote here. I said live in the woods. Did that commandment say thou shalt not kill except if somebody breaks into your house and you have a right to defend yourself? Did he say that? I just want to know. Did he say that? I didn't write it. Thank you, Caesar. And then it gets problematic. Did God say, thou shalt not kill except go to war and defend your country against, you know, that's the problem. The problem with no, it's not a problem. That's the difference. In Socrates' world, there was no exception to absolute truth. So you couldn't wiggle out in a courtroom and say, yeah, but I killed because no, you're not allowed to kill at all. See, once you allow for exception, then you allow for things like excuses and you allow for things like justifications. And now you've got men and women going to war. Now you've got people arming themselves to the teeth. Now you've got the right to carry a gun, conceal and carry. Now you got a gun underneath your pillow. Now you are allowed, and you've got police shooting George Floyd. Hello. See, the ancient world, even though they had violence and the Roman legions killed millions upon millions, the philosophers of the ancient world were trying to keep the truths from being tampered with. They were trying to keep the truth pure. They were trying to keep the truth above all so it wouldn't get corrupted. Watch this magic trick. In the exact same way that Gatsby was trying to keep love pure. So it doesn't get corrupted by rich people and by affairs and by the corruption of the heart. Now, that did not survive the test of humanity. Humanity shifted. Now, let me explain. Somewhere, definitely in the life of what I would call Jesus Christ, because he debated truth against the Romans when they executed him. The nature of truth. Here, let me show you. Let me show you. I'll show you something. I'm going to show you something. I could find it online. So, okay. Let me find this good quote. Okay, so let me give you the context. This is not a religious Bible studies class. This is a historical look at men and women, Hypatia of Alexandria, who fought to defend truth. So Jesus is an example. You don't have to be a Christian. I don't care what you believe, as long as it doesn't harm yourself or others. Jesus was sent to be crucified by the Roman governor Pontius Pilate. And Jesus debated Pilate in Pilate's, well, it wasn't quite a palace, but it was his dwelling where Pilate had his court. And they debated the nature of truth. It's in the Gospels, it's in the history books. I'm telling you, it really happened. So here's what they say. They say, "What is truth?" said Pilate, jesting. Pilate was trying to provoke Jesus, and he said, "Okay, you're so smart. You're a wise rabbi. What is truth?" And Jesus refused to answer the question. Then Pilate said, "Is truth an abstract noun? Is truth a logical construction? What is the substance of truth?" And then Pilate says, and I'm not finding this quote here, Pilate says, I'm going to tell you what Pilate says. Pilate says to Jesus, "Is my truth the same as your truth?" And of course, Jesus would not really debate him because he was just being provoked, and Pilate didn't have sincerity in his heart. And Jesus knew that he didn't, Jesus was forgiving him. And Jesus said, "All my thoughts come from a higher power. All your thoughts come from the ground, and they're going to go back into the ground because they're not pure, they're not holy, they're not righteous." That's the problem. Do you understand? You listen to me now. Do you understand that 2,000 years ago, when they were debating in the desert, they were debating the exact same things we're debating today? Whether it's Black Lives Matter or whether it's Republicans and Democrats, it doesn't matter. We're not agreeing upon what the truth is. Have people been wronged? Should we make reparations for slavery? These are the big debates today. A lot of people are dividing this country because they're clinging to different truths. So, Mr. Edwards, then what does that mean? That means the truth is no longer absolute. We are disagreeing on what truth looks like. And then I'm going to tell you, just so you know, that Jesus Christ was a great philosopher. When Pilate finally pushed Jesus for an answer, Pilate said, "What is truth? Do you have truth? Is your truth the same as my truth? Is your truth different than mine?" And Pilate says, and Jesus responded, "I search for the truth, just like you should be." We should be searching for the truth. And Pilate in that moment changed truth. And the opposite of absolute truth the opposite of absolute truth is relative truth. And if something is relative, that means it depends on your point of view. If something is relative, it depends on your point of view. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, "Mr. Edwards, I get it now. Albert Einstein's famous theory, E equals mc2, is known as the theory of relativity. What does that mean? That means depending where you are in the universe, your understanding of the universe is different than somebody on the other side. It's relative, not absolute. And now there's a huge problem here. I'm going to make it very clear. If you really want to know what Einstein's theory of relativity is, I'll tell you. I'll give you a great example. Say you're sitting on your front porch, and 2 doors down, a neighbor is sitting on her front porch. And in between the two houses on your street, a bicyclist gets hit by a car, and that bicyclist goes down. The police come, an ambulance. They take statements. And the other neighbor says, that bicyclist came out, didn't look left, and rammed right in front of that car. That car could not hit the brakes. But then you saw the car coming right through your house, and you said, no. That car, that person, he was talking on a cell phone. He was down, and that bicyclist looked. That bicyclist saw the man was distracted, so he thought he'd go quickly. The man looked up, and because he was texting, he hit the bicyclist. You're giving 2 different statements to the police. Who's guilty? It's a relative. It depends on your point of view. See, in absolute truth, your point of view doesn't matter. You stole a loaf of bread, we're going to cut off your hand. You looked at my wife improperly, we're going to poke your eye out. That's the law of the ancient world. That is an eye for an eye. There's no, the law of, you've all heard an eye for an eye.
The Hashirama Code. Or Harambe? I forgot to say it.
Well, you're going to call that the Code of Hammurabi. That's what you're searching for. You're searching for the Code of Hammurabi, which is about, that's going to be about 1500 BC. That's 3,500 years ago. And the Roman Empire had a name for it. They called it Lex. Why am I losing my scroll? My bad. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know why I'm down here. I'm having some weird issues. The Romans called it Lex Talionis. Lex is Roman for law. And Talionis is the law of the jungle. In other words, the concept of revenge, which the ancient world was particularly good at. I'm just being frustrated right now because I keep losing my scroll because of the sunlight or something. Yeah, the Code of Hammurabi was the Bible. The Bible started to get going about 1576 BC. You got to remember the Jews were enslaved in Egypt during the reign of Ramses II. Ramses II? Was it Ramses II or the first? Jews enslaved to Ramses. Let's see here. Let's get a year. Here's the British Library. Great place. Hope you get there someday. I've been there many times. We just want a date. All right, we appreciate you, British Library, but we need a date. When? How about we do when were? Yeah, let's just say when. When were the Jews enslaved to Ramses? How long were the Israelites enslaved? Okay, where's my scroll? Let's see here. Give or take. Boo. This actually looks better because I see a timeline. Boo, 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 boo. I should call my brother. He's an expert on this. He'd know. Um, let me see here. I can't believe it's something so easy is so hard to find. Hold on. Let me just, maybe I'm rushing. Maybe it's me rushing. What year the Jews become enslaved in Egypt? This will explain a lot. Back to the British thousands of years ago. Maybe they. Back to this. Thousands of years ago, the Jews were slaves in Egypt. All right, when we have to just go to Ramses. They were enslaved by a king named Ramses. So when did Ramses live? 1304 BC. Thank you. Jeez, that was hard. So 1304 BC. I said 15, but there's reasons I said that. The Jews, let me explain why I said 15. Because the Jews were enslaved in 1304 BC, but they were Jews in the desert as far back as 1576 BC. They were wandering. The Jews are one of the oldest religions on earth. In fact, it might be the oldest religion on earth. In fact, it is. Well, that's not true, because you have Hinduism in India that goes back to 3000 BC. So I do believe the oldest, and I will stand by this, the oldest religious organization in the world is in India, and it's called they were called the well, they're now what would be called the Hindus. Henry David Thoreau wrote a lot about, was very much inspired by Hindu philosophy. So here's my point. The laws, these truths we speak of, were developed by the Jews, the Egyptians, the Greeks, and then the Romans. And they were not interested. I guess here's my point. They weren't interested in courtroom trials. The first trials in Greece were about 400 BC. In the ancient world, when I say ancient world, I always mean Egypt, Greece, and Rome. They had absolute principles. They would execute you over nothing because you violated the code. That's how we got on this subject, the Code of Hammurabi. See, what happened was, you know, this is what is going to this is what's going to give you that aha moment. What happened was, the reason the Code of Hammurabi is important is because in the very ancient world, people, I don't know why it's doing that, people were killed for literally nothing. If you stole a loaf of bread, you were executed. And then a lot of the kings felt that that was too harsh. So Hammurabi came around. They were Babylonian. They were in the Middle East, which they would be now where we would say Syria or Israel. They said, no, We got to stop killing everybody. We get that truth is absolute. We get that there is no gray area between right and wrong. We get that he stole and the punishment is death, but it's starting to sound a little harsh. You know what I'm saying? He really was a good guy other than that. So this is what you'll appreciate. That's the Code of Hammurabi and then the Code of Lex Talionis ushered in the concept of the punishment must fit the crime. That's the missing link. The punishment has to fit the crime because they didn't have any other recourse. They killed you for the slightest infraction. Now let's peer review our work and let's Google Hammurabi. Here's how I misspelled it. I knew I misspelled it on the outline. It's two M's, but I knew that. The Code of Hammurabi was, oh, there she is. Well, there it is. Well, that's cool. I'm okay with that. I guess it still exists. So be careful. Whatever you do, don't steal a loaf of bread because they just love to kill people that stole bread. Food was so dear. I'm liking this right here. Oh, History Channel, good channel. Hammurabi. Wow, look at me, class. I told you. I said, I'm screaming because my air conditioning unit comes on and off, so I'm not going to scream anymore. I was pretty damn close. I said 1576 BC. They said 1594, 1595. And I said Babylonia. And you say, Mr. Ritters, oh, you're so smart. No, I learned that in school from Miss Riley. Miss Riley taught us that in the 3rd grade. Hammurabi was the 6th king in the Babylonian dynasty, which ruled in Mesopotamia, which is now in Iraq, 1894 to 1595. His family, okay, he expanded his kingdom. What is the Code of Hammurabi? The black stone. Okay. Did you know the Code of Hammurabi includes many harsh punishments? I told you. The removal of the guilty party's tongues, hands. The code is also one of the earliest examples of accused person being considered innocent until proven guilty. So that's the missing link. This was the first time people were not just killed indiscriminately. So we're going to put it all together. And everything we're saying is 1,000,000% accurate. What I was arguing is that in the ancient world, now we're going back 2,000 years BC, because they had no code, they had no courts, they had no judges, they had kings. They had kings and queens. And the king had absolute power. See, back to that word absolute. The king would either pardon you or the king would have you sentenced to death. Black or white, day or night, up or down, left or right. No justice. It was all absolute. It was at the will of the king, of the God on earth. Caesar famously, I pardon you, send him to death. Caesar used to walk into Rome from his wars and his holding the beheaded heads of other kings. And the Romans would just go nuts. Hey, look, this king, he thought he could defeat me. Look, they go nuts. You think ultra fighting, you think UFC is violent? So here we are, a society stuck in absolute. No matter what you do, you're wrong. You kill a squirrel, you're wrong. Thou shalt not kill. You swat a fly, thou shalt not kill. You're stuck. But it also is to protect us from killing each other. The Lord was very wise because he knew that, if he didn't say don't kill. Like he said don't kill, and look how much we kill. In wars alone, 55 million people were killed in World War II alone. Thou shalt not kill? 100, whatever. So you've got this Hammurabi, and he very wisely said, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Maybe we shouldn't cut his tongue out. Maybe we shouldn't poke his eye out. Maybe we should hear what his defense is. Before we cut his tongue out and he can no longer talk, maybe we should hear his, my family was starving. I stole the bread. I'm sorry. It was that or starved to death. Either way, I'm dying. I mean, it's just so absurd. So thank you for the Hammurabi, because it really hit home. Is the first time on planet Earth that somebody ever said, stop. We're killing indiscriminately. Let's kill a little bit more methodically. Now watch this magic trick. So by the time we get through Jesus, as noted in his debates with Pontius Pilate, by the time we get to this new concept, by the way, you live in this world. Don't tell me you don't, because you do. You live in the world of relative truth. You do not live in the world of absolute truth. You might believe in absolute truth, but your society, your courts, your police officers, your governments, they are living in a society of relative truth, because relative truth allows for this. Remember, I said relative truth depends on your point of view. Don't forget that. Let's not be so sloppy with our notes. I told you relative truth depends on your point of view. Relative truth. Thou shalt not kill except in self-defense. Thou shalt, my bad, it's me typing too fast. Thou shalt not kill except in war. Thou shalt not kill except a mercy killing. In a hospital for a person with terminal cancer. And that happens. That's called euthanasia. It happens. It's not legal, but it happens. And you could just keep going on. Thou shalt not kill except in home burglary. See my point? You could go on forever. That's the world we live in. Because the Code of Hammurabi allows people to defend themselves and creates the concept of innocent until proven guilty. In 400 BC, the first courts are erected in Greece, which affect the Western world, the world that expands west to Europe. Then you have the concept of judges, attorneys, prosecutors, defense attorneys, peer juries, and then all of a sudden, everything's relative. Everything depends. All of a sudden, you're sitting in the witness chair, and 12 people are looking at you, and some guy with a clipboard is saying, where were you Monday, 2 a.m.? Was at home. Do you have a witness? Yeah, my buddy. We were playing Nintendo. Do they even still play Nintendo? I don't know. I play chess. You see my point? Everything's relative. Everything's depending now. Everything's depending on point of view. And that's what that debate ultimately what's dividing this country, because people have different points of view. I promise you, and I'm not trying, I do not want, I have nothing but kindness in my heart for you, but I promise you, I'm just telling you, again, I'm telling you just something that I believe is true. I'm promising you that an African American who was born in slavery is going to have a different point of view. No. Watch this magic trick. Watch this magic trick. I promise you that in chapter 2 of The Great Gatsby, the butler who polishes the silver has a different point of view on the American dream than Tom and Daisy Buchanan that are partying and drinking champagne out of fish bowls. I promise you. And now you know what relative truth is. I gotta charge my phone. I gotta charge my computer. I got an outlet back here. So I'll be right there. Thank you. So let's go. Let's pause there. That was 50 minutes, 50, on a single quote from Thoreau. Let's look at the quote one more time. Let me save the document. Then we're going to go on to journal entry number 3, which is, could you live in the woods for 2 years? I got some interesting answers. So let's go and look. I'll be happy to send you the outline. But look, from a single quote, look at those notes. Rather than love, than money, than fame, give me truth. And look, over the course of 4,000 years, how truth has changed in this world. Here's my question. I'm going to be very basic because it is complex and I don't want your brains to like fizzle. But I want an answer now. We're not going to go on to part 2 of the course. We'll sit here till 11:30 a.m. in complete silence if I don't get something profound from you. In the most basic sense, absolute truth, you're not allowed to kill anything, not even a fly. I know that's a little extreme. I get that. Let's take away the flies. God wasn't talking about killing the flies. They slaughtered lambs in the Bible. God was talking about killing other human beings. He wasn't saying thou shalt not kill the flies that spread disease. He was saying thou shalt not kill thy brother and sister. For the record, I'm going to tell you something that really, and I'm writing a book about it. And I'm writing a novel right now, but I'm also writing a book about religious education, and it's going to take me a couple of years to finish, but I'd be happy to share it with you someday. What really mystifies me is that in the very first book of the Bible, Genesis, Cain kills Abel, Adam and Eve's children. The very first family in the Bible, there's a murder. Cain kills Abel. And that is really, really, really crazy. 1 minute you're in paradise, Garden of Eden. The next minute, you're crawling on your bellies like a snake and you killed your brother. And so God said, no. I created you. I don't want, no, don't do that. Like a mother to a child. Don't know. And so he said, wait a minute, stop. Thou shalt not kill. Now, here's my question. Would you rather live in a world where truth is absolute in the whole world? In other words, there is no killing of any human being for any reason at all. Now we're talking no death penalty, no self-defense, nothing. Nobody kills. Or would you rather live in a world of relative truth where you are allowed to defend yourself, conceal and carry, you are allowed to go honorably and die or kill in battle and war? Because you can't have both. You can't, thou shalt not kill, and thou shalt not kill except, which world, knowing that you live in the second world, could you ever live just like living in the woods for 2 years? Do you, here's my question. Here's my real question. Do you think the world was better when God said, thou shalt not kill? Or do you think the world is better now when the society says sometimes killing is justified? Here's my point. Is killing ever justified? Is the question too hard? It, is there ever a time where killing is justified? Or is killing always wrong? Thou shalt not kill. You see the problem? You can't have both. Anybody? Anybody at all? Let's see what Stavrola has to say. You think killing is justified? I need that clarified. You think that there are times in this society where killing is justified? Okay, so here's Stavrola. You live in relative times. Therefore, you are speaking in relative truth. And there's nothing wrong with that. Most people would always say the following in modern society. This is really non-debatable. In fact, here's my point. The following things I'm about to say, you cannot be accused of murder in the following ways. You will be defended by the courts, and you will be exonerated, and you might even be a hero. If you put on a uniform and go to a foreign country to defend American democratic principles, and you kill some Taliban in the desert, they will put a medal on your uniform. You've murdered. That's not the word I want to use. You've killed, but you've not been accused of murder. You've been accused of defending freedom, and they put a medal on you. You have a legal right to own a gun in this country. If somebody breaks into your home and tries to attack your family, you got a legal right to stand and shoot that person. And nobody, not even a judge, not the newspapers, not your neighbors, you will get acknowledged for self-defense, which is legal in this country. The laws in this country are so clear that you would never go to jail. You'd really have to. Self-defense in this country is one of these built-in rights. And another example I would think of is the death penalty. I'm not in support of the death penalty, but there's like a lot of states still have the death penalty. I don't think Illinois does, but like Texas does. I don't remember all that. But no, you're a mass murderer. You killed 30 people. You know, you're a blight on society. You know, nobody's going to shed a tear over you. There's lots of ways in this country we're killing. Here's my point. Oh, I hadn't even had a sip, hon. Sorry. I've been too busy with these scholars. There's lots of points of view. Remember, point of view? In this country, where killing is actually honorable. Where killing is actually commended. Where killing is actually honored. And that is so bizarre, but it's true. And they say The Buddhist scriptures say, the Buddhist scripture says, don't even put your hand and swat a fly. Because if you kill even a single housefly, how do you know that fly was not the reincarnation of the Buddha's mother? You're not even allowed to kill a single fly according to that law. Me, I don't kill. I don't kill. I don't kill. I don't kill. I am a fighter who does not fight. Think about that. I don't kill. All right, so excellent work there. And I'm glad you had the guts to weigh in, Stavrola, because a lot of people, they don't have the guts. A lot of people don't have the guts to say, yeah, I believe in the death penalty. I'm not saying you do. I'm saying a lot of people think that, you know, what's the right answer? No, there is no right answer. It's how two worlds cannot coexist. Absolute versus relative. So you've just got a quick lesson in 4,000 years of history. Now, part 2 of our celebrating the course is your journal entries on could you live in the woods for 2 years? And 2 out of 3 said no. So only one of you said you could. And the rest of you said no. So, and I get it. That's a long time. But Henry David Thoreau did do it. And again, that's why he's Henry David Thoreau. I'm going to go back to my, I'm charging. Because now this, would you guys mind terribly if I just run out front and get my garden umbrella from the front? I can be back in 33 seconds. Please? Because my computer's going to melt. I'm going to go, I have an umbrella out front. Just don't do anything. Just stay quiet. Because my computer's getting hot. Stay right there. I'll be right there. I promise. Unless I go search for absolute truth, then you'll never see me again. I'll decide between the length of the sidewalk whether or not truth is relative or absolute. If it's absolute, you'll never find me again because I'm going to go search for it in the desert. If it's relative, I'll be back in 30 seconds. Wait and see. And just in case truth is absolute and I go search the desert, I better have my desert hat on. Okay. Looks like truth is relative. That's what I'm talking about. There you go. Now we got some shade. Yes. Yes. Let me see if it's better over here. One sec. Okay, now I guess I'll just do this. It's not me. I don't mind. I don't want, computers can't get baked in the sun. It's very bad for them. Okay. Let's continue. So I'm okay. Still kind of hot. So I'm going to put in your new grades. I talked to Miss Tobias and Miss Johnson last night for about 10, 20 minutes. I have final say on your grades. I have your current grades on my grade book. I will update your grades today. And then, do you guys see your grade on Aspen, or you have no access to Aspen? Do you even know what your grade is? Oh, but okay, wait, whoa. Edward, what, really? While I was gone, you were partying? Okay, you guys are so silly. Wait, when you say you haven't checked, does that mean you can check? Do you all have access to summer grade book? Oh, okay, good. I'll put in your grades. If I have the energy, I'll do it immediately. But I'll certainly do it. I mean, they'll be done by 2 p.m. for sure. You're going to get your makeup grade from me. So your grade will improve. So don't worry about grades. Worry about the nature of truth. Your grade is relative to the truth. Whoa, you're blowing my mind. Sorry. It really is mind-blowing when you think about all the... Listen, I want you to remember this. I'm just trying to keep my computer from... I'm serious. I'm not playing. I want you to remember, if you ever learned anything from Mr. Edwards, not that I could teach you. You most often discover the realities on your own. If I ever tried to, let me say, if I ever attempted to teach someone something, I attempted to teach you, from The Great Gatsby to what we discussed today, the importance and the reality of point of view. If we only understood each other's point of view, especially people who have nothing in common, this would be a beautiful place. Watch this magic trick. If we truly appreciated each other's point of views and respected the point of view of others, we wouldn't need relative truth. We wouldn't need to defend ourselves with guns. We wouldn't need to go to war. All those wars are ideological wars based on values, and your values are different than mine, you know? If anything, terrorism has taught us from 9/11. Terrorism has taught us, and this is an exact quote from the 9/11 hijackers, they wanted to destroy our way of life. They didn't like our way of life. Their point of view was different than ours. They thought that's why they destroyed the World Trade Centers, because they represented American wealth. And they thought that Americans were greedy and all this stuff. Now I'm going to give you, and I don't always do this, but for you I will, as sort of a farewell, to give you some inspiration. Were you guys even alive during September 11th, 2001? No. All right. Do you know what 911 is? Do you know what it is? Okay. I'm going to give you the mystery. I got to get my thing right. I am going to move, but the reason I don't want to move, remember, every day I move down to the steps, but I'm charging my computer. Okay. I'm going to tell you something. For you, because I care about you. This is going to be how we're going to end the course. First, I'm going to make a point. The terrorist attacks of September 11th (2001). I got my teacher certificate to become a teacher so I could teach you someday. September 10th, 2001. I became a teacher, certified. The day before the terrorist attacks. It was the happiest day and then one of the most tragic days of my life. On September 10th, 2011, I went down to South Clark Street at Jackson, where the Board of Education was, and I got my teacher's certificate. And I got a piece of paper that said I am now licensed to be in a classroom with children and teach them my subject. After 3 years of teacher school, hard fought, paying my whole own way, and I didn't get a nickel from anybody. I went down to the Art Institute of Chicago, where you've all been. I celebrated myself and had a nice little lunch in the courtyard and looked at the Picassos and looked out at the great art of the world and said, my journey has begun. I finally made it. My dream has come true. I was living in a basement apartment in Ravenswood. That next morning, September 11th, at 8 a.m., my clock radio went off, and the disc jockey on XRT 93.1, Lynn Bramer. So I would have been, let's just give you a context, 2001, 11, 19. I would have been about 32 years old. My clock radio woke up to a station I like called XRT, WXRT 93.1. Check it out. And the disc jockey, Lynn Bramer, he said in the morning news at 8 a.m. news, they always do the news on the hour. He said, there's some weird reports coming out of New York City that a small plane might have hit one of the World Trade Centers. And then his co-host, she said, Mary Dixon, she said, that's weird. And she says, I've heard that low-flying planes often come close to hitting the towers. And she says, I hope nobody's hurt. I didn't think twice of it. I thought it was weird. I had a weird feeling. But I wasn't teaching yet. I had just got my certificate, so I had to go find a job. So at that time, I was not in the classroom. I was substitute teaching, but I didn't have an assignment that day. I was working for an art gallery, and I was hanging very valuable works of art, huge oil paintings. So I got up, went to the gallery, grabbed a big oil painting of some people sitting in a park or whatever, put it in the company van, and I drove it over to Walton Street by Lakeshore Drive on the Gold Coast, like by Ohio Street Beach. You guys, on Lake Michigan and Chicago. And I went up the service elevator with this huge artwork. I went up to the 10th floor, whatever it was. And when I came out of the service elevator, because I was going to install this artwork in this woman's Gold Coast apartment, it's a $50,000 painting. When I came out of the service elevator, there was a white woman in her 30s with a bath towel around her, and her hair was soaking wet, and she was trembling. And my reaction was that she had been assaulted or sexually assaulted because of the way she looked. Her door was open to her apartment. And my first reaction was, oh my God, are you okay? I need to call the police. We need to secure the building because somebody just attacked you, because she had every symbol, the terrified, trembling, the fact that she had just somehow violently come out of a shower. I was terrified for her. And she says, no, 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 I wasn't attacked. She said, I think my best friend just died. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, I just watched on television the World Trade Center just collapsed, and my best friend worked in the World Trade Center. I think she's dead. So I tried to console her, and she calmed down. I still had no idea what she was talking about. And so she said, thank you, sir, but I'm okay. I need to call New York now and find out my friend. And she's like, I'll be okay. And I'm like, if there's anything I can do, just let me know. So then, unfortunately, Mr. Edwards still had a job to do. I still had to hang this artwork. So then I go down the hall and knock on this other woman's door, and she answers. I'm like, here, I'm from Callahan Art Services. She's like, yes, I've been expecting you. Well, she had these are all apartments, so they're all open. And so she has the open kitchen. And on her kitchen counter, she had a little television. A lot of people have little kitchen TVs. And she says, did you hear what just happened? And I'm like, well, another woman down the hall just said something strange about the World Trade Center. And she said, Tower 1 just collapsed. And I'm like, that's impossible. From a little plane? Because I heard the news report earlier, there was a little plane. And she's like, no, it was a jetliner, like United Airlines. And I said, are you kidding me? A commercial jet, a United Airlines full of 300 passengers crashed into a building? And I didn't no idea. I said, 30,000 people must be dead. I thought 30,000 people lived in that tower. And then we're sitting there, and I got this artwork. I still got to hang this work of art. And I'm sitting there, we're just dazed. And then Tower 2 fell right in front of us on TV. I watched Tower 2 fall on TV live. And I'm looking at a woman. I never met her in my whole life. I didn't even know her name. I had a work invoice. I had her address and her first name. And I'm sharing this moment with a total stranger. And we're looking at each other, and we're like, what's going on? And so I hang her artwork, get back in the van, put on the radio, and the radio was all about the concept of two towers falling and how could that be and what's happening to this country and are we in a state of war and is this an act of terrorism? Was this an explosion? What's going on? So I went back to the company and they sent me right home because they didn't know that. See, at that time, they shut down the entire country because they didn't know if there'd be more terrorist attacks in major cities like Chicago. So my boss said, go home. It's like 10:30 a.m. Well, whatever. Who knows what time it was? I'm sure it was around noon because of the drive time alone. But so then I go home and put on the TV and everybody's calling everybody. My mother, my brother, my friends, everybody's calling everybody what's going on. And then, of course, the reports came out that and then you forget you weren't there. And then they say an airplane hit the Pentagon. And then they say Flight 93 United crashed in a cornfield in Pennsylvania. And then they say they're scrambling F-16s out of Langley. And we're like, what's going on? I lived on Chicago Avenue. I had a clear view of the skyline. I could throw a rock and hit the John Hancock out of my porch window. I could see the Sears Tower. I'm thinking, are we next? It was such a surreal day. You forget those other planes that crashed, the Pentagon, Flight 93. There was 4 planes that day. And that was the most powerful event of my life. for my generation. And again, of course, then we found that they were hijackers, and there was 19 of them, and they were from Saudi Arabia, and they were trying to destroy our way of life point of view. And they killed just over 3,000. And then we went to war in Iraq, and then we went to war in Afghanistan. And 19 years later, we're still in Afghanistan. I'm not judging it. Phoenix Military Academy sends dozens and dozens of students in military uniform to Afghanistan, but it did change American life. You know, TSA, airport security, the list goes on. The Patriot Act, you know, all the things that they do now to spy and fight terrorism, right or wrong. And that was one of the most powerful memories I could. I mean, like you said, I can even remember. I could narrate that day by the minute. And I'll say one thing that you can't say, but someday when you talk to your children or grandchildren, you'll say the same thing. I'd been in the World Trade Center in my life because when I was in 8th grade, my father took me to New York City. Just me and Dad. He had business there, and he knew a woman who worked on the 50th floor of the World Trade Center. And we went up to her offices, and I walked down the hallway. And because the World Trade Center is on the port, it's right across the port from the Statue of Liberty in New York. It's on the harbor. They had, I'll never forget, they had like 50 paintings of ships coming into New York port from the immigration. And I thought it was so cool because they were all ships that were bringing in immigrants to America. You got to know your geography. The World Trade Center was literally across a small harbor from the Statue of Liberty. And then as a treat, my dad took me up to the roof of the World Trade Center where they had an observation deck. And I'll never forget, there was a fence about 14 foot high because they didn't want people jumping off like nutcases. I felt like I was in a cage because the whole thing, even the roof line had a cage over it because there's a lot of people that commit suicide. And they used to jump off that building. And I was walking through this cage to look out at one of the greatest, biggest cities in the world. And I was 8th grade. I was 13. I'll never forget the feeling. I was looking out at all this freedom and all of this New York in the whole empire of America. But yet I felt like I was in a cage. And as an ironic feeling. So the one claim to fame I have that your generation won't be able to make is I'd physically been in the World Trade Center. I've been in the towers. And then, of course, they've been destroyed. I've actually been in the new. I've been to the memorial because the foundations are still there. I've been to the New York Memorial since then. I've been back many times. And you get to, I've been into the museum. And someday you should go. Someday you should go. But again, you will have your moment in history. Your history is just as important. Your history is this is the first time since Dr. King that equality among the races is being debated violently or non-violently on the streets of this country. You know, this is a monumental, the monuments debate, the removal of statues, the Black Lives Matter, the attacking of racism, the George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the concept of racial inequality and police brutality. Your generation has this moment. Don't blow it. Don't blow it. Oh no, Mr. Edwards, I can't change the world. I know you can't. but you could try. Gandhi did. King did. Henry David Thoreau did. Civil disobedience. You can change the world. All you have to do is conscientiously wear the black armband. Mary Beth Tinker, 13 years old, protesting the men being slaughtered in the jungles of Vietnam. 13-year-old, a 13-year-old girl, and nobody ever heard of Des Moines, Iowa, took her case to the United States Supreme Court and won. And you're telling me you can't change the world? A 13-year-old girl from a cornfield can, and you can't? Give me a break. Now you must change the world, but non-violently. Henry David Thoreau never threw a punch. Dr. King never threw a punch. Jesus never threw a punch. Gandhi never threw a punch. Mr. Edwards never threw a punch. I have been so honored to be your teacher. I am going to take attendance now. That is the end of the course, because I don't think I can go anywhere from there, but give you time to be in solitude and let some of that soak in. So I'm going to get my attendance sheet for the last day of school, and then we are going to take attendance, and then we're going to dismiss, and then I'm going to update your grades. I will be right back. I always forget my attendance sheet inside.
Shenanigans.
Okay. So today is 8/14. Let me do a Caesar. Edward. Marcelo, good to see you. And Stavrola. You all going to get your grades updated? I might just do it right now just to get it done. And you will be pleased with your grades because you did the right thing. Okay. I'm officially done. I gave you all the inspiration I could think. I hope you all have a better appreciation for not just point of view, but for tolerance, for the Nick Carraways of the world who refuse to judge even the rotten people of the world. I hope that somehow, some way, these weeks we spent together has made you part of the solution, not part of the problem. And that in some way you feel inspired to go serve, like Father Schuler, my favorite teacher from when I was a sophomore, told us in Latin, boys, because I went to an all-boys school, he'd say, ad maiorem Dei gloriam. Ad maiorem Dei gloriam. We say, what does that mean, Father? He says, go forth and serve for the greater glory of God. Go forth and serve for the greater glory of God. I tried to serve. I became a teacher. Your turn. It's your turn to serve. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. John F. Kennedy, 1961. I care for you all so much. I bid you peace. The course is now officially ended. I am always there to respond to your cps.edu email communications. I will help you in any way you need help. I will recommend or give advice in any way I see fit. And unless you have anything to say, it's 11 a.m. We are officially done with the course. So, Stavrola, maybe you have the last word? Thank you. No, the pleasure was all mine. I'd wished we could do more, but you need a break and you need something other than Edwards in your life, though I already miss you. There's so much more I want to teach you. But the fact is, I will be your teacher at PMA in the 11th or 12th grade, so we will have much more to learn. But that's enough for now. Go and be teenagers. I know it's tough because of you know what, but you can still get outside. You can still be silly. You can still be, nutty and goofy. You can do all those things that make you that you can do all those things that teenagers are allowed to do. It's just harder because of this, But still, you know what? Here's your homework for the rest of the summer. Be goofy. Enjoy life. Just go. Do it. I'm going to go ride my bike. It's right here. Here, I'll show you. It's right here. I'm going to go ride my bike. It's right there. Second I put your grades in, I'm going to put on my bike helmet. I'm going to go ride to Calvin Park. You watch me. I'll meet you over there. All right, young people. Again, I'm here if you need anything. Don't, whatever you do. Here's my last thought. If you start to go down into the, if you start to get negative, if you start to get depressed, if you start to get scared, don't hide that. Now you're not allowed to go into the woods like Thoreau and hide from civilization. You just email me and I will help you. Because these are very challenging times. Don't bear the burden alone. You have people in your life that care about you. At that, I bid you peace. And in the great words of Henry David Thoreau, I went to the woods to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and to see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when it came to die, discover that I had not lived. Be good, young people. I'll talk to you via email, and your grades will be just peace.